Great. So, hi everyone. My name is Marilyn Quintana. I'm a senior regulated Canadian immigration consultant and director of Visa Immigration. And today I wanted to share with you some of the pathways that are available for immigration, answer some of the questions, discuss a little bit what's happening right now and what you can expect in the near future. Okay. So, let's dip in. Um, let's First, before we start, I would like to say that Visa Immigration has been in business for over 10 years now, and we have helped over 15,000 families to come to Canada. As a company, we have consultants from different backgrounds, and we speak together English, Portuguese, Spanish, French, and Farsi. And although we have offices in Vancouver and Toronto, we serve people all over Canada. And we have been nominated and awarded the top choice of business immigration for 4 consecutive years, including 2025. A little bit about myself. I hold the license for over 10 years. My first major was computer science and MBA in entrepreneurship and project management. And I'm the director of Visa Immigration, being responsible for collectively our team of consultants and all case managers that are working to help our clients to achieve their goals. Here's a little bit of our team. I won't go in deep more details about our offices. I'll jump in on what's happening with immigration in 2025. So first, we see now that provincial immigration programs have been quite slow in 2025. We see a more focus on federal immigration than provincial immigration. When it comes to further immigration, there are a few alternatives for those who are overseas. It's still available. We still have options for people to immigrate even when they are not in Canada, but the current main focus is to help people transition from temporary residency to permanent residency. And this is mostly through the Canadian Experience Class JOS, right? Other than that, the new immigration minister also issued a new plan in which they are demanding that the provinces invite 75% of their quota from people that are in Canada. So a strong focus for those who are already in Canada. Other than that, and for those who are even that they are not in Canada, there are possibilities through the in-demand occupations. We'll talk more about that. There are a lot of different alternatives when it comes to smaller communities, and there is regional immigration, there is specific programs for certain communities, and there are a strong pathway through French speakers with intent to reside outside Quebec. Okay. One very impactful change that happened recently was the elimination of the LMIA points. So before, a lot of people would count on those points to have additional points and become more competitive. The government decided to eliminate those points in March 2025. Although we thought that would be a huge impact in the points, it was actually nothing very significant, and we continue to see competitive pools, competitive draws. But hopefully, as you'll see very soon in some slides, we are seeing that hopefully soon it's going to come down. It's already coming down comparing to the most recent draws, as we are increasing the number of draws that are happening since last month. And another interesting change that happened in 2025 was the caregiver program, a new caregiver program that people can apply directly for permanent residency. It was a small quota program, so when it opened, it closed in the same day because achieved the entire quota, but is expected to open again for those who are in Canada in March 2026 and for those who are outside Canada in March 2027. And that can be a very accessible, easy option to apply for permanent residency. What are the challenges right now, right? So for those who are in Canada, they for sure you are all seeing all this impact. We are having economy slow down, mostly because of the tariffs imposed by the US, right? So while we have this uncertainty, we see that the economy is not taking off. We see also a lot of forecast in terms of economy that the Government of Canada is making efforts to approve the pipelines for oil and gas, improve trades among provinces. So hopefully some of these changes are going to help the economy in the near future. Okay. And when it comes to immigration, we are in a transitional moment for immigration that started happening end of 2023 when the Minister Mark Miller starts discussing about slowing down immigration, putting quotas, limiting the number of people coming to Canada. Okay. And since then, all we see is chains and more chains, right? So this specifically having chains almost every week, every other week, was the most complicated part of the immigration landscape in the past 2 years, okay? Now, finally, after 1.5 years of turmoil, I would say we are starting to see some normalization. So the new Canadian Immigration Minister, um, Lena Diab, she was nominated in May 13, 2025, and of course takes some time to understand her new responsibilities, but we see she has completed her full transition in June 2025 when she released a new strategic plan, a revised plan for 2025 and 2026. Okay. What we see right now with this intent of reducing immigration, officers are more diligent when reviewing applications. So we have to be more careful when preparing an application for any type of application, for visa, for extension, for immigration, because what the government of Canada concluded that they were allowing somehow a lot of fraud and fake information to go through. And unfortunately, it's always like that, right? Because of very few people that do the wrong thing, everybody now has to go through a more restrictive is a more strict process when reviewing the application. So we have seen that officers are demanding more information, sometimes requiring additional requests more often for applications. But hopefully this is just to make sure that people always apply with the right documents in the right way without misusing the system, without lying on their application. So that's not all bad. Of course, it is more concerning, but as long as you are genuine, for sure we can assist you and deal with all the answers that we have to provide. And one of the things that's impacting a lot of people is Canada received so many temporary residents in 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024, but specifically from 2021 to 2023, that once all these people came in temporarily, there's so many people competing for immigration, right? And then that's why we see that the selection points for express entry, for example, are so high and so competitive. But now, starting in 2024, we see a reduction of people coming into Canada. In fact, more production than even the government expected, right? And with that, we just need you guys to believe, because we are at the end of this transition phase, and hopefully very soon, for those who are starting their plan, or for those who are already here but have some time with their visas, either study or work permit, we will see improvement in the scenario coming very soon. And I think we're starting to see this already, okay? So as I mentioned here, the new Minister of Immigration, Lena Diab, was nominated in May 2025, 5. And she already released a new plan in June, which means she is fully transitioned now. And that's good news. And that translates into more invitations to apply, more chances for you guys to qualify for different programs, okay? And the good thing is she is experienced in immigration. She was a leader of the Nova Scotia immigration program from 2013 to 2021. So that's very good. And to be honest, we really enjoy working with Nova Scotia immigration program. It is a fair program. It is a very reliable. So just thinking that she could bring that stability and reliability on the federal level, that is very good news, and I'm sure that will be her mission while being the Minister of Immigration. So I know for those who are in Canada, there is a lot of tension, there is a lot of anxiety, there is a lot of uncertainties. But I would say we are at the deep part of this immigration cycle, the down possible, like the downs possible. And I think we will be recovering soon. And a number of opportunities are going to come to those who continue to believe in the Canadian plan and continue to work towards it. Because as you can see here, the numbers continue to be huge. It's just a matter of understanding what we're going to focus on and investing on those pathways that are interesting to Canada, that Canada is focused on right now, okay? So let's give an overall of all or almost all possibilities to come to Canada. So first, people can come with temporary resident pathways. Usually those pathways will help the permanent residence pathway. So when it comes to temporary residency, we have the study pathway, usually to study a bachelor degree or a diploma or a specialization certificate or master's, MBA, maybe even a PhD or postdoctoral degree, okay? So you can come to study in a private college or in a public institution. There are options available, several options available for international students. There are programs that have the co-op portion, which allows you to have an easier and more direct transition to the Canadian labor market, which are great. Post-graduation work permit is also a good option that you can access the Canadian labor market, because working in Canada will open a lot of the pathways for immigration. And of course, you can always get a job offer with support of your employer. When it comes to permanent residence pathways, the main important one is Express Entry. And Express Entry is a system that manages several different types of applications, including Canadian experience, class, French, draws, and in-demand occupation draws. We have provincial nominee programs that they're still on, they're still available. It's just in a transitional period right now. We have the Atlantic Immigration Program. We have rural and French-speaking community immigration program. We have the caregiver program, spouse sponsorship, and business immigration. We're going to talk a little bit about all those programs. It's very hot here in Vancouver. All right, so going ahead in terms of what are the immigration level plans, right? Because when we talk, the quota for immigration is decreasing. People are freaking out. But I want to make sure that everybody knows that the numbers are still super high. And it's the highest numbers in history before 2021. So it's much higher than the numbers were 2020 and before that, okay? So it is not exactly a limitation to send a message that Canada is not open for immigration. It's not that. It is more controlling, because it was growing out of control, right? It was growing to numbers that were starting to impact the Canadian way of living, the cost of living, infrastructure, hospitals, housing. So because of that, there was a public demand to control those numbers, right? But still the highest in history. For example, in terms of students, in 2025, it is expected to have additional 305,900 students. For workers, additional 306,750 additional temporary workers. Okay, so numbers are huge. Canada is still one of the main destinations for immigrants, either temporary or permanent. Okay, so this limitation now, this quota, it is actually a better way to create a pathway for those who come to study and work. And then if they decide to immigrate, they have a pathway that's accessible for them because they already studied in Canada, they already obtained the work experience. So even like there were several changes that happened in the past 1 or 2 years that was to give more benefits to students studying in areas of demand, for example, right? So all this is to create kind of a funnel and direct those people who are interested in immigration to pursue these pathways as like their pathway to achieve these goals, right? So the amount of frustration right now is just a lot of people came thinking of the old pathways, not the new pathways, right? But moving forward with the updates we have, you see that's going to be very streamlined from now on, okay? For immigration, so permanent resident pathways, okay, we see here that the priority is what we call in Canada focus. We have a target of almost 83,000 people to come through this stream. And here we are pretty much talking about Canadian experience class, so that's the highest number, okay? Then we have federal economic priorities, and these we are talking specifically about in-demand occupations. We'll talk more about what occupations are and what are the occupations in the list. We have the French speaking permanent resident admissions outside Quebec, which is currently of almost 30,000. And the minister has already announced that she will increase this number not to 9.5, but to 12%. Okay, so French, it's an option to apply for immigration that's currently a very accessible pathway because of its specific quota and the bonus points that they offer. Okay, we have the federal pilots. You see here, caregiver and other pilots are about 11,000. Caregiver was actually a little bit below 3,000. So this number is divided among several programs. PNP, there was a reduction in 50% from 110 from last year to 55. So that's the reason why we see lots of provinces not inviting people recently, is because of this extreme reduction that happened last year. And one of the new updates that the new Minister of Immigration has presented is that provincial nominee programs now have to focus on inviting at least 75% of their nominees from people who are already in Canada. Okay, so that's great news. We see, for example, Ontario posted last Friday a report about the people that they invited in 2024, and they invited a lot of people overseas. And that was a great opportunity for people that were in demand occupations being invited by just being the pool. Doctors, people in tech, people in trades, but it's also not fair for those who are here. So as majority of you guys are in Canada, that's definitely an opportunity for you to know that, for example, if you're in Ontario, the PNP is going to focus more on people who are in Canada, not overseas. So a little bit about the current scenario in federal immigration. As we mentioned, currently we see increased competition. So it's not that the quota is small, but there were so many people here admitted in Canada and so many people ready to immigrate. So that is what has driven the number of cutoff points to a higher level, okay? And we were in a transition period, as I mentioned. There were a lot of transition with the, change of government. So the prime minister, Justin Trudeau, renounced. The new prime minister had to call an election before acting upon, making change or bringing certain stability. So this all happened between December last year until May this year, right? So all this, we had kind of a limbo time when especially from February to May, we haven't seen many draws happening, or those draws that were happening was very limited number of people being invited, and the lower the number of people invited, the higher is the cutoff points. So we were seeing those happening, causing lots of frustration. There was no regularity about like when is happening a draw. It's every 2 weeks, it's every other week, it's every week. We didn't have this information, but because there was no one specifically in charge that knew what was going on. Was still the transition period, and I'm very happy to say that based on what we have seen in June 2025 forward, we believe that now is the end of the transition period. The normalization that we were hoping to see since the beginning of the year is starting now. Specifically from June 2025 to today, we had more than 9,000 people invited on Canadian Experience class. And with that, we are going to see more draws, and of course, the cutoff points are going to decrease. For PNP, I know that a lot of people, especially in the main provinces, BC and Ontario, are very upset about not having draws for a long time. And this is because with the reduction that happened, they had more people in their backlog that they had quota for 2025, okay? However, right now, they will start, so right now in 2025, they are clearing their backlog. They are pretty much considering everybody that were invited in 2024 to use the quota for 2025. So soon they're going to be working with a clean quota, means inviting people and nominating those based on the quota of 2026. So when we are expecting to see the return of new immigration draws, especially on these provinces, BC and Ontario, that over invited in 2024, created a huge backlog of applications to process, which limited them from inviting more people in 2025. So we are in July, it's mid of July right now. So soon, usually when they know their quota, they usually start inviting people like in September. We always notice this kind of movement that close to the last 3 months of the year, they would start inviting more people because they were already considering the quota of 2026. We don't know exactly how it's going to be in 2025, but I think the latest we will see more draws for provincial programs starting for sure in January 2026, if not sooner. It can happen starting from September. So for those people that were already disregarding the provincial program because, oh, it's not inviting anybody, so I will not even have a profile, don't do that. Make sure that if you have the eligibility to create a profile, you must have a profile because you never know when they will do an invitation to apply. And those who believe in, who explore the possibilities that they have open, they will be invited, right? They will be the first to be invited. And what happens after the government does one job? People start to believe in again, and then they will rush to create their profiles. And then you become more competitive again. So now we have to use this lack of trust in certain programs to be ready because they are going to come back. This transition period is almost over. And when they come back, you want to be the first one to take the opportunity to have the invitation to apply and proceed with your application, okay? And based on the report that was issued by the new Minister of Immigration, PNP programs must focus on people in Canada, and especially for Ontario, that's going to be a huge change. That's going to mean a lot of opportunity for those who are in Ontario right now. Okay, so let's talk about the Express Entry system, the most popular way to come to Canada. There's the four main criteria for you to get points into Express Entry system: your age, your education level, your work experience, and then we have here different points for your work experience from overseas. We can count the past 10 years of experience, and also experience from the Canadian Canadian work permit. So we call Canadian experience class, right? So even if you work in Canada while you're a student, you're not getting Canadian work experience until you have the work permit. Okay, so the work experience is actually divided in two criteria. And of course, language proficiency, that can be English, French, or both. And you have additional points if you have French combined with English, if you have siblings in Canada, if you have studied in Canada, and other ways to have additional bonus points, okay? Just a moment, please. Okay, all right, so how the Express Entry Pool works. You have to get ready. You have to prepare your strategy. You have to know what's the work experience that you are going to count for points. What's your knock code for that experience? How we are going to have, how you're going to organize your documents to prepare your application. Because I see a lot of people that try to do by themselves. They put a lot of experience that they don't need in terms of points. And then they end up having to have so much paperwork to prepare, which increases the complexity of their application and end up being a problem, okay? So that's, you have to choose carefully and strategically to give you the maximum points that you can, but without increasing the complexity of your application. So choosing the work history that you're going to use for immigration is very important and is part of the preparation process. Other than that, you have to verify your education credentials from overseas. So if you didn't study in Canada, or sometimes even if you studied in Canada, you can add additional points based on your highest level of education. That's sometimes the one that you achieved overseas. And in order to count points for your education, you need to do what we call Education Credential Assessment, or ECA. And you have also to do that strategically, because there are some occupations that require you to do with certain organizations, okay? And language test, of course, it is very important for you to have your English test, and especially if you are focused outside Quebec, because Express Entry is an immigration pathway for those who wanted to immigrate outside Quebec. With French, where English is the main language, okay? But you can have only English, you can have only French, or you can combine both. If you can combine both, you will definitely have the majority of points. Once you have the structure aligned and the strategy ready, you can create your profile into the Express Entry Pool. Another thing that happens is that a lot of people wait until they have the perfect profile in order to create their profile, and they may lose opportunities. That's not what you should do. You should always create your Express Entry profile as soon as you can, and then this profile will be available. You can always update the profile with new information, so you can understand why you got those points and what you have to work on to improve, okay? Once you are in the pool, there is this rounds of invitations that hopefully now it is stable and regularly. So we are expecting draws every 2 weeks, as it used to be in the past. If your points are equal or more than the cutoff points of that draw, and you meet the eligibility criteria, you receive an invitation to apply. Once you receive the invitation to apply, you have 60 days to complete your application package. Once you submit your application, your permanent residency can be approved in 6 months or less. Okay, so Express Entry is not only the most popular way to immigrate, it's the fastest way to immigrate to Canada. Okay. Talking about who has the highest chance, of course, age is important. So the younger you are, you have more points. You have maximum points up to 30 years old, and you start losing a few points every birthday after 30, and you lose all the points once you are 45 and high. Doesn't mean that anybody that's over 45 cannot immigrate. It's just like you probably are going to miss those points and you have to compensate in another area, okay? Especially depending on your strategy, what's the type of draw that you are aiming for. Education, the higher your academic level, the best for you in terms of points. I would say if you want to be above average, if you have a bachelor plus another diploma or another certificate or post-degree diploma, you are ready with very good points, right? Because the difference between postgraduate to master is just 7 points, for example, right? So, of course, bachelor is also good points. If you have the maximum, which PhD is amazing, or masters. And if you do masters, bachelor, masters, or PhD in Canada, you have the bonus. You have additional bonus. It's 30 points additional for completing these levels in Canada. And if you complete a diploma certificate in a public institution, then it's additional 15 points. So there is advantage in terms of points for completing your studies in Canada. Language, we mentioned English or French, has to have the proper test. We'll talk more about it. Work experience, the minimum that you need to create a profile is the 1 year. If it's for foreign work experience, this 1 year has to be within the last 10 years and has to be continuously. If it's based on Canadian experience, it can be in the past 3 years and has to be with a valid work permit. If you don't have experience in Canada and you don't have a job offer, you also need to present funds to immigrate to Canada. And of course, here, we also have to work strategically. So your work experience, it is hopefully aligned with one of the in-demand occupations. It's not mandatory. Every skilled worker can qualify for a profile into Express Entry, but you can increase your chances if you have experience in occupation in demand. And it's only required 6 months of experience. And French currently give you a lot of advantages for your immigration. Okay, so at the beginning of the webinar, somebody asked us how to select the NOC code for my occupation, right? So the national occupation classification is based on tiers, tier 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And the ones that are considered skilled worker are tier 0 to 3. Well, you can find your NOC code most cases by researching on Google, but of course, as a general criteria, any manager is tier 0. Any person that usually requires a university degree to perform their work, like engineers, software developers, doctors, lawyers, accountants, they are usually tier 1. Here we have also financial analyst, marketing analyst. So we have a lot of professionals that are qualified as tier 1. Tier 2 is like college diploma. So usually people that need to have some kind of higher education, but not necessarily a bachelor degree. Okay, so here we have all supervisors are usually tier 2. We have here between tier 2 and tier 3 is the same criteria in terms of studies. And then we have usually cook, bakers, trade occupations, for example, people in construction. And I put here some of the other references for you guys to have an idea, okay? So a lot of occupations are considered skilled worker. Regardless of being in demand in Canada or not, you can qualify to create a profile if you have one of these occupations. And a lot of times, we can help you to find the specific NOC code that you best suit your immigration plans as well. Of course, it has to be aligned with what you do, what you studied for, but there are some cases that you have 2 options, right? Or 2 that are very similar. And aligning and choosing strategically can make a huge difference in your application process. And something that's important to know, sometimes this strategy starts when you are starting your journey in Canada. So, for example, when you make an application for a study permit, you will declare what's your work experience. So you have to have a strategy on how you're going to declare there. Of course, everything legit and correct, but you have to already be thinking, what if you wanted to stay in Canada and apply for permanent residency? How do I align this experience? How can I get the most advantage to increase my chances in the future? Because at the end of the day, RCC is only one department of the government. So either you're applying for a study permit and 5 years later you're applying for immigration, they will have all the information that you applied at the beginning. And if you have some inconsistencies, that can be questioned. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the occupations in demand and other priorities of the immigration in 2025. Okay, so actually, since 2021, when Minister Sean Fraser received the mandate for immigration, the prime minister that was in power at the time, Justin Trudeau, aligned the mandate to be focused on 4 pillars. And that's why we have the pillars here in the presentation, right? So the 4 pillars are helping those who are in Canada, helping those who are in smaller communities, what we call regionalization, focus on occupations in demand, and focus on French speakers who want to settle outside Quebec. Okay, so even though these 4 pillars were posted on the mandate letter in 2021, it continues to be the pillars for immigration even in 2025. What I've seen was a creation of new programs, for example, for regionalization that was only launched in 2025. We have now our CIP and FCIP immigration, right? We have the occupations in demand was launched first in 2023, and a new list was updated now in February 2025. So we have to always keep an eye on that because, especially when it comes to the list of in-demand occupations, we know that the government plans to review that from time to time. So if you have an opportunity to use one of those experiences, you gotta do before it changes, right? We are expecting normalization in terms of not changing all the time, but we know that the changes can happen as well. I have seen, for example, few people that had everything to qualify in the previous list and didn't because didn't pursue the application right away, thinking that that wouldn't change. And it took a while. It was posted first in July 2023, changed in February 2025. It took over 1 year, but eventually changed. The changes were not huge. So what are the areas? Oh, I have actually a mistake here. I have to remove agriculture. So what are the areas in demand? Sorry, actually agriculture continued to be in the list, but they changed the occupations in there. So the 5 areas in demand are health occupations, and then I would say whoever is in health care and social care occupations, social worker, they are in very advantage right now because there's so many occupations included in this category. I think includes pretty much all occupations in health that are considered skilled worker from tier 0, 1, 2, or 3. Okay, and it goes from doctors, nurses, veterinary occupations, dentists, pharmacies. So it's a very broad category as one of the categories that has the most number of occupations listed that would qualify. The STEM category had a huge reduction now in February 2025, and pretty much the main change was removing architect and most IT occupations. So the only IT occupation that's now in the list of demand is cybersecurity. And all the other occupations in the list are now focused on engineering. So more engineering occupations were added, all IT were removed, okay? Agriculture, they removed the agriculture occupations. They only maintained the butcher occupation in this category. They created a new category in February 2025, which is education. So it's focused on those who teach for elementary, secondary level, or early childhood education. And trades occupation is also a huge priority. The list has expanded, and a lot of new occupations were added to the list. Okay, so as I mentioned, what is required to qualify for the category-based draw that's focused on in-demand occupations? You only need 6 months of continuous full-time work experience in one of the in-demand occupations. And there are lots of occupations that you can qualify and become competitive that does not require studies before, right? And there are a lot of occupations that it requires studies, but there are very easy and accessible options for you to become competitive. So that could be an opportunity for you to explore. So who are being invited to apply in 2025, right? So these are like just a picture of the last draws. As I mentioned, we are seeing now more regularity, more normalcy in terms of draws starting in June. So as you see here, while we were in the transitional period, the draws were very small. For example, the draw on May 13, 2025 only invited 500 people. And of course, the points were very high, it was 547. But starting June 12th, we have seen invitations considering 3,000 applicants at once and every 2 weeks. And similar to what we saw in 2022, always the same week, one draw for provincial nominee, the second draw in the same week for Canadian experience class. We haven't seen yet the draws for in-demand occupations to resume, so we are expecting more draws to come in the healthcare sector. So we had a transitional one that was very small, and then as a consequence, higher points. We had one for education. We haven't had trades for a while, but I'm expecting now to see these rounds of invitation coming very soon. Well, as I mentioned, the pool continued to be competitive, but the advantage of having different options through Express Entry is that you have different level of points that you can become competitive, okay? So if you are focused on Canadian Experience class, as you saw here, the last draw brought the cutoff points to 518 points, right? And we believe that the points are going to come down. Hopefully, if the draws continue to be regularly, inviting about 3,000 people every 2 weeks, 6,000 people per month, we have another 5 months, and more than 10 draws to come, right? So imagine like we definitely will reach to, let's say, 30,000 invitations for the Canadian experience class. So majority of these people here and coming down to this one can be invited to apply, okay? STEM, we haven't had any draw for the STEM occupation since they changed the list, they reduced the list. But that reduction for sure will impact the number of points, bringing them down. So if we see the past draw for STEM, the average points were around 480, 490. We believe that these points are coming down for the next draw, and hopefully around 450. So that's just a forecast. That's not set in stone. I want you just to be cautious based on our analysis and our experience in dealing with immigration cases. For health, for example, we saw a transitional draw here that was very high, bringing to 510 points, but because they invited very few people. Healthcare continues to be one of the main targets for occupations that Canada is willing even to bring people from overseas, and we believe that bigger draws are expected. We had several big draws in health in the past, and we had an average of 460 points in the past, but was previous draws that was as low as 420. We are expecting those to continue to be the average, okay? So usually for above 400, you should definitely be there. Actually, again, like regardless of your points, if you have the eligibility to create a profile, you should create a profile because you never know. And when it comes to the pool of candidates, not only the federal government can invite you, sometimes provincial programs can invite you as well. Education, the new category that was launched in February. There was the first category draw for education in March. Sorry, in March or April, if I'm not mistaken, was only one so far. Was the cutoff points were 479, but was only 500 people invited, and that's why we believe that with bigger draws, the points are going to come down. Trades, there were several draws in the past, but not with the new list. But overall, people in trades, they have lower points because usually they have lower education or lower English or French skills. And usually, I would say if, people are competitive if they have at least 400 points. And for French, combined with English, if you have above 300 points, you may be competitive for the profile. And to be honest, if you have French, considering that the minister is increasing the quota for French speakers outside Quebec, just make sure that you are there, that you are registered to receive an invitation to apply. So we are talking points here. So if you haven't created your profile, like how do I know how much points I would have? Here's for you to have an idea, okay? So points for age go up to 110 points if you're single or 100 points if you're married. Education around 150 if you have the highest level, and it goes a little bit down for each level that you are below the highest one. Same for English or French. So you guys can have an idea. It's not as impossible to have 400 something points, right? Based on the amount of points that you can combine together to receive, to have the most competitive profile. Okay, and then English, right? Usually for you to create a profile, you just need 7 on Celpip in all abilities. The higher your points, the better your score, and you receive additional bonus points when you have 9 or more in all abilities, okay? So we do recommend Celpip as the English test to take for your express entry. Is the Canadian test. I have a very good feedback from all the clients that it's the more is the most fair in terms of assessment. And you know, sometimes if you don't get it in the first try, it is okay. If you did one test, you took some of the anxiety out of the picture, right? Because there's a lot of anxiety of doing the test and failing and not performing well. You know what? It is completely normal to do a second one, a third one sometimes, or even more, because the more you do the test, the more familiar you are with the test, right? And you're going to improve as well. Of course, if you do one, you can create your profile and you know the areas that you need to improve, then you can also create a study plan and go to Celpip website and find the material that is going to help you to improve that specific ability, okay? French, there is 2 tests that you can do, TCF or TEF. Same criteria in terms of languages, but if you have 7, you are already qualified for the specific draws in French, so you don't need to get all the way advanced. Usually if you have intermediate combined with English, you're going to have the bonus points, and that helps a lot, and also qualify for the priority draws. Here's when it's TEF, the other type of French test. All right, so in terms of funds, we cannot forget the proof of funds that are required for immigration. If you don't have Canadian Experience Class, you require these funds starting July 7, 2025, okay? About 15,000 for one person, 19,000 for couples without kids, and about 4,000 more for each kid that you have as a dependent family member. So in terms of strategy, there is also the provincial nominee programs. I won't be able to speak about each of the programs, but I would say the majority of them consider studying in that province as an advantage and having a profile, having an opportunity aligned with the studies or with the work experience that you have in that province, or acquiring certain amount of experience after graduating in that province. So overall, even though we have about 4 or 5 different streams in every province, the majority of them aligns with you studied here and then you got a job offer, you can apply. You didn't study here, but you have a job offer, you can apply if you have experience related, right? So there are different pathways depending on the province that you are, but the majority are aligned with this concept. We have Atlantic Immigration Program that's pretty much similar to what I explained. We also have the skilled worker and international graduate stream, and you require a job offer in one of the Atlantic provinces. So Atlantic provinces overall offers additional pathways because you can have the federal program, you can qualify through the provincial programs, or you can qualify through the Atlantic Immigration Program. So 3 different pathways for people to choose the Atlantic provinces. Definitely a good choice. And the language requirement are either English or French, CLB5, which is quite low, so can be an opportunity. However, if you're already in BC or Ontario, for example, it used to be okay to move to Atlantic later. But right now, the provinces are more selective on those matters, and they're not allowing people to be nominated if they studied in another province, okay? So you have to be very, very careful in terms of creating a strategy from the beginning, because until last year it was possible to move and like maybe you study somewhere and then you go to the other province after you have created some kind of ties to BC or Ontario, but now they're not liking those options. And in many cases, they're choosing to refuse the application. So we have to be careful here. And if you are from overseas, for example, maybe it's a good alternative to start aligning your plan from the beginning to being one of those provinces, according to your profile, of course, and according to your goals. We have now 2 new programs that align with the regional immigration priorities. We have the Rural Community Immigration Pilot. Certain communities are eligible to apply, and the Francophone Community Immigration Pilot, it is also certain communities. In this case, the difference is like RCIP, you have the requirements to present English or French, and FCIP is mandatory to have French CLB5 or higher, okay? The level of English that's required will depend on the type of job offer that you have, okay? But it's actually very accessible as long as you have a job offer and related experience with one employer that's located, sorry, the job offer has to be with the employer that's located in one of these communities. What are these communities? Here we go. Here we have the list. So we have a number of cities that are designated to nominate candidates. This program right now is the biggest opportunity that you can have if you are stuck in your immigration plan, because the process through these communities are very, very fast as long as your employer is on board to help you. That could be a good alternative for you to pursue in terms of immigration, okay? Considering moving to one of these small provinces and, sorry, small communities, and then finding a job offer with a designated employer, okay? Caregiver program, it is a great program, but with very limited quota. You do require 6 months of experience or a program of studies in related studies in terms of caregivers. So we are in July. If you wanted to qualify for this program, you need to start working as a caregiver now or studying for caregiver now. Otherwise, you won't qualify in March when the program opens. But this can be a very good opportunity for those who are not competitive in any express entry or provincial nominee program. Well, studying, as I mentioned, is an opportunity to give you additional points. If you study, we already mentioned here, if you study in Canada, you get additional points. It can open pathways for obtaining work in regional areas as well. Okay. Here, post-graduation work permit, it has changed, and now only certain courses qualify for the post-graduation work permit. So if you're planning to study in Canada, please make sure that you double check if the program of study is going to qualify for post-graduation work permit. If visa offers education consulting as part of our portfolio. So we offer education, visa, immigration, and citizenship. So all that you need in one place, and we can assist you making the best choice, focusing on the possibilities that you want to foresee in the future. Okay. Coming as a family is also very challenging, requires planning. There is a lot of benefits when you come with a family because once one is working, the other one may be eligible to qualify for open work permit. Children are eligible to study in Canada for free when coming as dependent family member, except in universities. So they study for free elementary school, kindergarten, and also secondary school up to high school, right? So this is definitely an opportunity for families to take advantage and expand their possibilities of immigrating to Canada. But it's also important to choose strategically who is going to be the main applicant, who is going to be the dependent, and what are the pathways that we can build with the family background and experience. Well, I spoke a lot, and we are actually going a little bit 1 hour right now, but I would like to say there's so many ways to work in Canada and to come to Canada. It is very difficult to cover that in one seminar in 1 hour, but there are lots of options that we can explore. So for those who are in Canada, and if you are with a work permit that's about to expire, we need to talk. And I would say you have to do this in advance, 1 year in advance, to create a strategy to apply to extend your work permit so you can continue to be in Canada and you can continue to be competitive or preparing yourself to immigrate to Canada, even if you require more time, okay? So if you need to find ways to extend your work permit in Canada, there's several ways that we can discuss. And we'll definitely find a possibility for you. Okay, so to conclude, time matters, being ready, having a strategy in place, and being able to take all opportunities that come your way is very important. So the sooner you're ready, the better, more chances you have to qualify, okay? Because sometimes you also need times to prepare, time to qualify to obtain certain skill or to perform, and with more time you take the steps to do it, the level of anxiety and pressure on you and your family you'll be less. So start to planning as soon as possible, okay? And remember, immigration is not set in stone. We hope the change that were happening in the past 2 years has now slowed down. I hope not to see many changes in the near future, only positive changes, not more restrictive changes. But immigration is, a journey, and you always have to prepare, but you also have to adapt to the change, right? And having a person to guide you, it is very important, because sometimes you miss an opportunity for not being aware of the opportunity that you missed, and that can be like your main opportunity, and losing it may make everything more difficult, right? And of course, if you do everything by yourself, you require much more time to understand everything, won't have experience. Even if you do by yourself and submit the application, the level of anxiety until knowing whether or not worked and it's going to handle the approval or not, is going to cause lots of anxiety, lots of frustration if something goes wrong. So finding a professional to take care of you is kind of insurance, right? Making sure that you increase your chances of success. How we help you? We can have an initial consultation with one of our immigration consultants where we'll discuss your background, your experience, what are the pathways that you are comfortable, when you want to immigrate to Canada, what's the budget that you have to make this plan happen. And then we will provide you, after the initial consultation, with the plan A, plan B, and hopefully plan C, plan D of all the options that you can explore. If after the initial consultation you don't want to continue your process, that's okay. You know what to do. But if based on the consultation, when you're our support to guide you throughout the process about gathering the documents, collecting the documents, validating if the documents are correct, preparing your profile, submitting everything to the government of Canada, we provide full support for your immigration journey. And what I would say, we will always be walking alongside with you in this journey to provide all the answers that you need to make the best decisions while preparing to have your best profile and achieving the goal of migrating to Canada. So yeah, and if you wanted to know what's the best option for you, we have exclusive coupon for people attending this webinar. We offer additional $10 discount in our consultation. The code is Celpip25 and is valid for 1 month from now until August 14, 2025. So book your consultation. You can just go to our website, evisimmigration.com, select the best time for your appointment, and use the coupon in the checkout, okay? I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation today. Thank you for being here with me. Now I'm open for a few questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this very informative presentation, Marilyn. It was very in-depth, and I'm sure that everyone who is currently attending this webinar has learned a lot, myself included.
Thank you.
So, as we're looking at the timing, I think the best way to proceed is I am going to share with Marilyn all of the questions that were related to immigration that have been asked so far with her in the chat. And Marilyn, I think if you could please just answer those questions in the chat so that we can proceed with the second half of our presentation about
Okay, sure. Let's go ahead then, and then I can answer on in the chat. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, and 1 moment, please. Okay, I've just shared the questions with you in the chat, and there was also a question that we were hoping to learn about you all attendees. So this is a question related to immigration. So if you could please vote in the poll, because eVisa Immigration was very interested in learning, what stage is your immigration plan at the moment? Is it early stage, starting with this seminar? Are you well informed, however, you have not started? Have you already taken some steps, but nothing concrete? Do you already have an immigration strategy ongoing with yourself? Or do you already have an immigration strategy ongoing and with professional help? So, and just a reminder, you can always contact Celpip at evisaimmigration.com, and in the email that you will receive tomorrow, 24 hours after this webinar, you will also get information on how to reach out to Marilyn and the eVisa immigration team if you have any follow-up questions that Marilyn wasn't able to answer today. So when I look at the answers, so far it looks like that 37% of people who have responded so far in this poll have already taken some steps, but nothing concrete. So very interesting to learn. And well, thank you so much for voting and participating and asking such informative and also such interesting questions in the first half of our presentation, which covers immigration with Marilyn. So now we are going to talk about the Celpip test. Okay, let me share my screen with you now. And if you have any questions at any time, please continue to type it into the chat. So at the beginning of this webinar, we have asked you all to vote in the poll, telling us what were you hoping to get from attending today's webinar, and also how familiar are you with the Celpip test? And the vast majority of respondents who are attendees to this webinar have answered that you are attending this webinar to get information on study and test taking tips, and also I would assume immigration information. And the vast majority of respondents have said that you are already familiar with the Celpip test. So in saying that, I will try to give you more details that you may or may not be as familiar with. So, but I will still talk about some Celpip basics. All right. So we are going to provide you with some gifts. So 24 hours after this webinar, you will receive an email, and this email will contain gifts such as the Celpip Path to Success, the score comparison chart for the speaking and writing components, which is a really useful chart because it tells you what the raters are looking for and the differences between the different CLB levels. You will also get the notes to this presentation. It's called a participant pack, and it's better than the slides because you get a summary, very concise, of the key points that we are talking about. In addition, to thank you for attending this webinar, you will receive a discount code to receive the Celpip Accelerate Reading and Writing online study product for free. This is where you are currently at in terms of what we envision the Celpip path to success. You are currently attending the Celpip Introduction and Test Preparation Plan webinar. And this webinar, I will give you a general idea of what Celpip is about. And there are also over 10 hours of free preparation to help you get ready. We also have free practice tests. We highly recommend that you keep using the practice test to be familiar with the timing of the test. One of the tips that I have to share with you is I had this realization that taking in a language test is kind of similar to taking a driving test. So let me know if you have taken a driving test before. I would assume that most people have taken a driving test, myself included. And a similarity that I noticed is that on a driving test, a lot of people think that, oh, I'm able to do the basics, for example, drive forward, drive backwards, parallel park, etc. But some people, they are not able to get their targets on their first try. And I would tell you that I did not pass my driving test on my first or second tries. But what I realized the similarity is that you need to practice for the environment of the test. So it's not just about how good is your English. It's about how are you able to demonstrate the best version of your English skills within that time frame. Okay, so that's why understanding the format and practicing for it, especially in environments which may be uncomfortable, would be a tip that you might be able to use and take away as you are preparing to take the Celpip test. Okay. We also have a lot of preparation materials. For example, we have online study materials. If you go to the libraries, you will be able to find books likely. All of the major libraries in Canada, there are printed, and in some libraries, there are ebook versions of the Celpip study materials, which you can access for free. So go to your library, and I will share some links in the chat at the end of this webinar. We also have online study programs, such as the Celpip Accelerate Reading and Writing online study product that will be given to you for free, and also free webinars conducted by professional English language teachers who are also very experienced in teaching the Celpip test. And finally, after you have registered for the Celpip test, my wonderful colleagues on the customer service team, they will make sure that you get reminders such as what time to arrive at the test center, confirmation on the date and also the time of your test, etc. So hopefully you're able to get hopefully you're able to feel good after all of this test preparation and feel very confident as you take the Celpip test. This is what we'll be talking about today. We will talk about the Celpip basics. Why should you choose Celpip? We will talk about some test day preparation tips, and also some tips you could use. And if you have any tips that you wanted to share in the chat or ask other people who are currently attending this webinar about their thoughts, please type it into the chat, because some people have responded saying that you have already taken the Celpip test. So we would love to know what has worked for you. And then I will quickly show you how does the Celpip test look like by component. And I will end this presentation with telling you about the test preparation materials that we have, and also the benefits of working with eVisa as well, because spoiler alert, you are able to get additional Celpip materials if you become a eVisa immigration client for free. So let's go over the Celpip basics. The Celpip is a computer-delivered testing program that assesses 4 English language skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. It's focused on functional language proficiency, so daily English, the type of English that you are using as you are living and or working in Canada. It was originally developed at the University of British Columbia here in Vancouver. And a few years ago, we were purchased by one of the world's biggest testing companies called Prometric. So as a result, the Celpip test and also our academic test, the CALE test, we are now products owned by Prometric. And the Celpip is the only Canadian test that is designated by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada as evidence of English language proficiency. There are 2 Celpip tests, so please make sure you register for the correct one. So if you are planning to apply for permanent residency, which covers the post-graduation work permits, express entries, and also provincial nominee program, please make sure that you are registering for the Celpip general test. And the nice thing about taking the Celpip test is that you are able to use your scores for multiple purposes without taking it again. So let me explain. For example, if you are planning to apply for permanent residency, and within that 2 years, you are also planning to apply to the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants, CICC, or become a realtor in the province that you live in, you can use your Celpip scores that you use for your permanent residency application as long as it's within 2 years of the date that you've taken your test. And if and when you do want to apply for Canadian citizenship, the only reason when you would want to take the Celpip General LS test is for Canadian citizenship purposes. The Celpip test, it takes about 3 hours to do, and it is done in one sitting. In Canada, the Celpip test costs $290 plus tax, and the price may vary internationally. And here you can see on my slides a summary of what each component tests you on, and also how long you have to take to finish the component. So why should you choose the Celpip test? The Celpip test is the only Canadian English language proficiency test for immigration and professional designation. It is quite efficient, so it saves you time and money, because that means that you likely don't have to take time or find childcare, time off work more than once, or find childcare more than once. And that also means that you only need to commute to the test center once. So it's quite efficient. And 3 to 4 calendar days after you have taken your test, business days after you've taken your test, you will receive an email telling you that your scores are available. So please check your Celpip account, and you can download the score reports and then submit it to IRCC, or the institution that is accepting Celpip scores. And we also have a lot of free study materials to help you prepare to take the test. Let's talk about the computer-delivered features. First of all, the Celpip test is completed in one sitting. It's quite efficient. With the speaking component, what people really like about it is that the question is in front of you on the screen at all times. So people have told me, people who have taken the Celpip test, and people who work with people who have taken the Celpip test, tell me that they really like this because it's very calming on their nerves, that you can just look down at your notes in terms of what you have done to prepare during your preparation time for the speaking component, and then also look back up at the screen to check what question is being asked of you, and also how much time you have left to answer the question. With the reading and the listening components, it's multiple choice, and one of the 4 answers are always correct, and you can change your answers as many times as you like, as long as the timer hasn't expired. And for the writing component, people really like it because it is similar to using a word processor, like Microsoft Word or Google Docs, because it contains tools such as word count, a spell check, and editing tools like cut, copy, and paste. So it helps you because with the editing tools, it saves you time, and that gives you time to review your work and try to make sure that by the time the timer expires, you are confident with submitting the best version of English that you can in that moment. And overall, on the top right-hand corner of the screen, you will see how much time you have left to answer the question. We highly recommend that you visit the FAQs page. The FAQ stands for frequently asked questions. And it's a wonderful resource because you can find answers to many questions that you may have regarding the Celpip test at any time during the day, even when our customer service team, who are based in Canada, are currently not working. So it's so much wonderful resources, very, very useful. Speaking of our wonderful customer service team, they're great. Like I can tell you, they genuinely care. If you contact info@celpip.ca, that is the best way to get your questions answered. And the team can help you with changes to personal information, for example, the name, date of birth, passport details. And this is really important because you need to make sure when you are registering for the Celpip test, your information matches what you are entering into the system. And it needs to match what your identification document, for example, your passport, says. Because if they do not match, the staff who are working at the test center, they are able to say, I'm sorry, this does not match, and unfortunately, I cannot let you in. So it's really important to be able to make sure that the information that you are submitting as you're registering for the Celpip test is correct and matches your identification document. If you have any special accommodations that need to be made, for example, if you have a disability, you can contact info@celpip.ca, but please contact them at least 2 months in advance. Because sometimes it takes a while to try to figure out the accommodation, and also please please enclose a medical documentation from a doctor in this special accommodations request. So you can contact them at info@celpip.ca or find out more information at our frequently asked questions page, which is the page that I just shared with you just now. You can also ask our customer service team to help you with transferring to a different test date. Fees may apply, especially if it is within 7 days of the test. You can also ask the customer service team to help you with technical support, such as unlocking your account if you cannot access study materials, etc. This is how you register for a Celpip test. And just a reminder that registering for the Celpip test is done in 2 ways only. It is done either on celpip.ca, or you can go to a partner such as eVisa Immigration, who have an account where they are able to register a Celpip test for you. So you will have to provide them with your information such as your chosen test date and time and location, and also your passport, etc. So this is all to say that please make sure you register for the Celpip test online and not at a test center, or through one of our partners, such as eVisa Immigration. And just a reminder, please arrive 45 minutes before the start of your test and bring your identification document, such as your passport and confirmation email, to enter your test. And we flagged the 45 minutes part because it might affect the time that you choose to register for your Celpip test. So, for example, if you see a test and it starts at 9:30, just a reminder, that means that you need to arrive at the test center by 8:45 a.m. This is how a test center usually looks like. You can see that this is the Regina Open Door Society. You can see that you have locker storage to put everything such as your phone, your wallet, etc. And you can also see that a computer lab looks like. It reminds me of a call center, so or it reminds me of if people were working in an office. So this environment may already be familiar with you. Earlier, during this presentation, I recommended that you prepare for the environment. So one of the tips that I have for you is practice doing the Celpip test in a kind of busy environment, because understand that the test center will never be completely silent. And as a result, there might be people who are moving around or starting their speaking test ahead. So how do you prepare for that? You prepare for that by trying to go to an environment such as a busy cafe. So a recommendation that I have for you is to bring your laptop to a cafe and practice doing a Celpip test practice there. Or you can go to the libraries. In several libraries, there are computer workstations that you can book for a certain amount of time. So for example, the Vancouver Public Libraries that I go to, they often have computers which you can book for 60 minutes. So for example, practicing for a component during that time, using a computer or a laptop in a kind of busy environment like the library or a cafe. You can see that you will receive headphones and headsets and also privacy shields. The test day staff is also here to help you. I think if I have one takeaway from this presentation is that I hope you understand that the people who work for the Celpip test genuinely want to help you. So we help you by providing you with a lot of free support and resources, whether it is from my wonderful colleagues on the customer service team or the test day staff, or working with partners to provide you with free webinars that are informative and also give you an online study product for free. So what you can do when you are at the test center and you raise your hand to ask for help, the staff can help you with changing or testing your equipment. So for example, if your headset is not working, please make sure you put your hand up and ask them to help sooner than later, because you do not want to get into a situation where you realize partway through, for example, your speaking component, that actually your microphone is not working and that maybe you accidentally didn't record. So please make sure that you raise your hand and get help sooner than later. The test day staff can also give you resources such as note paper, so you do not need to bring note paper or pen. They will give it to you, and after you are done the test, you will have to give it back to the test center test day staff. Some test centers also offer earplugs, so my recommendation is asking this test day staff after you check in if they have earplugs, and if they do, get them earlier, and then after you especially this could be really helpful, putting earplugs on and then potentially also putting your headsets on, because instructions are provided for you through your headsets. And if you need to go to the washroom, the invigilators can help you with can walk you to the washroom and stand outside of it, but remember that the test time does not stop. And if you have any test issues, please report them immediately or through your Celpip account within 24 hours of the test. The Celpip test is a Canadian test, so we are matched with the Canadian benchmark levels. So if the government of Canada says, for example, you need to get a minimum of CLB 5, you need to make sure that your Celpip levels are at least a Celpip level 5 and above. Here is a quick information about how the each Celpip component looks like. So you can see that for the listening component, you get about 55 minutes to complete this multiple choice. And for the reading component, you can see that the test screen and the passage are all on the same screen. And one of our best advice is make sure that you answer every single question, even if you are not sure. And also make sure that you do spend a couple of minutes reviewing your answers. So for example, for this question, you can see that you have 11 minutes to answer the question. Our advice is to make sure that you have finished answering all of the questions with time to spare, so that you can review your answers again and make sure that you are very confident with it. We can provide you with more tips through our webinars that we can offer to you. The writing component, there are only 2 tasks, and make sure that you complete all 3 instructions that is written on the right-hand side, and also make sure you follow the instructions that are on the left-hand side. And so for the writing component, we recommend that you spend your time reading the question, the expectations, address the 3 points, spend a few minutes, not too long, no more than 5 minutes, brainstorming. You can use your pen and your piece of paper to write down your ideas, and then spend some time writing your passage, and then make sure you have some time where you are reviewing your answers as well. The last component is the speaking component. you can see that there are text-only tasks, and you can see that you have a preparation time. So for example, for this question, you only have 30 seconds. So our instructors, online instructors, they will be able to help you maximize the time you have to prepare to answer each question. So one of the tips is use your pen and your piece of paper and write down your ideas. And as you are recording, you check both what you have written down on your notes and also check the timing to see how much time you have left to answer the question. And for the speaking component, there are also tasks with a text and image. So here, just imagine that you are an art dealer and your job is to sell someone with a lot of money, really interesting graphics. And you call your buyer and you tell them there's this really interesting graphic. They're not able to answer. So you leave them a voicemail. So basically pretend you are leaving someone a voicemail, and we want you to paint a picture with your words so that people have this visual in their heads. All right, let's talk about the test preparation materials. If you go to celpip.ch/translations, you'll be able to find Celpip information translated into 12 languages. Here is our Celpip study path to success. Let me share with you this path. Just give me one moment. This is a really useful tool because it contains the resources that are available in both print and also online, such as our webinars and our YouTube channel. We also employ several webinar instructors, and they conduct Celpip webinars for free. Between these 4 online instructors, they have over 70 years of teaching experience combined. They have 5 bachelor's degrees, 2 master's degrees, and they're certified in TESOL, Delta, and CELTA. They also speak English, Portuguese, Tagalog, Hindi, and Tamil. So what we can do is that, these online instructors, they host regularly scheduled webinars. And what we can also do is that we can also organize weekly webinars if you are interested. So for example, every Tuesday, maybe starting in September, for the next 6 weeks, your job will be to attend these webinars. And if you have any specific questions about language or taking the Celpip test, please ask them these questions, because they are professionals and they are also very well versed in helping people. So if you could please vote in this poll if you are interested in attending a series of 6 webinars. What time would you be interested and also available to attend? Would it be Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, or Fridays? And also what time would work best for you? So I'll give this a few minutes. So please, if you're interested in attending a series of 6 webinars, so for example, Mondays from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern time, we can work with one of our online instructors and they can conduct free webinars just for you. So this would be like a Celpip study plan, part of your Celpip study plan, where you are telling yourself, okay, for the next 6 weeks, during this day and during this time, I will be taking a free 2-hour Celpip webinar. And if I have any questions, as I'm maybe using other Celpip resources, I can ask these professionals. So please do Vote, let us know what days of the week will work best for you. Right now, it seems like that the people who have voted in this poll so far, there is a mix. Generally, people seem to be more available Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays for a webinar. And it seems like that 6 p.m. Vancouver time or 9 p.m. Eastern time seems to be the most popular time. Okay. Well, thank you so much for responding to this poll. We will send a follow-up email asking you if you're interested and coordinate with e-visa as necessary. Okay, so we also have a lot of free study resources. So right now I'm going to share into the chat the Celpip speaking and writing score comparison chart, which tells you what the raters are looking for. And the differences between the different Canadian language benchmark levels. As I mentioned, we also have 2 free practice tests when you create a free Celpip account, and also a very helpful YouTube channel with videos such as study tips, and also a series called Celpip Live, where you can ask Celpip study specific questions and test preparation specific questions to an employee who knows the Celpip test very well and also is proficient in teaching people. Okay. And just a reminder, if you do or do not know this already, when you register for a Celpip test, you get up to 5 hours of study materials, which is the Celpip Accelerate Starter Kit, which is a snippet of what the Celpip Accelerate online study product can offer. So there are benefits to registering for your Celpip test earlier, because you'll be able to access study materials such as this one. We also have online study materials such as the practice tests. The questions were taken from old tests that used to be used. And then now we've retired them, but the technicality is the same. And we also have the Celpip Accelerate online study product, which we are giving to you the Celpip Accelerate Reading and Writing online study product for free. We also have books. So here is where I will give you my tip. My tip is to go to your library. I love libraries a lot, and I will paste into the chat right now the link to access these books that I am sharing with you on my screen for free. So all of the major libraries in Canada, they have they have several Celpip books, either in print copy or in ebook format. So I shared with you the Toronto Public Library link, and now I'm also sharing with you the Saskatoon Public Library link. So generally look for the books that have the publisher or the author Paragon Testing Enterprises, because that was the name of the company before we were purchased by Prometric. And if the Celpip books are not available, there is a feature at the libraries called recommend a title, and I have shared into the chat the link to the Saskatoon Public Libraries recommend a title page. So then what I would recommend that you do is that you basically look at the books that are available. So for example, go to the Toronto Public Library link that I just shared with you, and then look for the book and then copy the details, because the details of the form usually ask for the title of the book, and then this is when you write things like Celpip focus, author, composer, or performer. They will usually say something like Paragon Testing Enterprises or Prometric. And then you can also find the ISBN or ISSN in the information, and then you can select preferred formats such as book, etc. So for some libraries, they do require that you are an existing library patron, so that you do have a library card to fill out this form. But this is, in general, going to the library is a really, really, really helpful way to access Celpip resources for free, especially the books. And sometimes Celpip libraries also co-host webinars with us. So for example, we have a long-running partnership with the Surrey Libraries and the Vancouver Island Regional Libraries to partner to where we have an online instructor. It's usually Trina, who conducts weekly webinars for 6 weeks, and they last 2 hours each. And Trina conducts these webinars, and she answers questions. She reviews how to answer each question in each how to answer each task. This tips and strategies to answer them. And if you are looking for an academic test, we have the Canadian Academic English Language Test, also known as CALE, that you can find out more information on and also take, because the CALE is accepted by over 180 universities and colleges across Canada. And just a reminder, you will receive the Celpip Path to Success document, which I will reshare again in this chat. You will also receive the Celpip speaking and writing score comparison chart. You will also receive the notes to this presentation, which is I also shared with you in the chat, and also the code to receive the Celpip Accelerate Reading and Writing online study product for free. Okay, so someone mentioned that the first link returns a 403 forbidden response from the Toronto Public Library. Thank you so much for letting me know. So I will type into the chat what you should recommend that you look for. Look for any books that are written or published by Paragon Testing Enterprises, because these are the books that were written in-house. So I know one of the writers of the books, because he still works here. He is the manager who's responsible for the online study products and also the print materials, and also, but basically helping people prepare to take the Celpip test. So developing the curriculum to also help teachers help people prepare for the Celpip test. So look for the books that are written or published by Paragon Testing Enterprises or Prometric. And just a reminder, you'll receive the Celpip Accelerate Reading and Writing online study product for free, and so you don't have to pay $25 for it. Check your email tomorrow. And this is how you redeem discount code. So you would add the online study product to your account, and then you would put in the promotional code, click apply, and you'll be able to see that it turns from $25 to $0. And you will be able to use it for 6 months from the date that you've redeemed it. And as a special offer for e-visa immigrations clients, you are able to get the Celpip General Practice and Analysis online study product, which instead of paying $35 for it, if you are a client of e-visa immigration, you can receive it for free. So make sure you contact e-visa immigration and become one of their clients, or if you're one of their clients already, make sure you reach out to their team so that they can give you this Celpip General Practice and Analysis online study product for free. And if you have any questions, please contact my wonderful colleagues at info@celpip.ca or visit us on our YouTube channels. All right, so I'm going to now see if there are other questions related to the Celpip test. While I check, I wanted to express thank you for everyone for attending this webinar, this joint webinar hosted by Marilyn and also the e-visa immigration team. I hope that you have found it very helpful with us sharing the tips that we have from a registered our RCIC immigration consultant, Marilyn, and also that hopefully you have learned some extra and bonus test preparation tips as well too. All right, so Marilyn, do you have any questions, any comments? I'm just going to look at the chat.
Just to let everybody know that I did answer most of the questions that you kindly put in a notepad for me. So I was just copying the question and copying the answer right away in the chat. So please take a look. I think there was only a few questions left that I couldn't reply. But again, thank you so much for being with us today. I think we went a little bit over time, but I hope you guys all enjoyed what we shared here today. And remember, we are available to help you in your Canadian journey. Just send us email, celpip@evsimmigration.com. Juliana, my assistant, she is participating here with us, and she's the one that possibly will review this email as well. So if you have any questions, if you want to know more information, how to book a consultation, you can contact us through that email. We also have the link that I put on the chat with the specific link already with the discount to book a consultation. Okay? Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here today with you guys.
Thank you so much, and thank you for staying with us. We hope all the best with your immigration journey and also with your Celpip test. All right. I don't see any specific Celpip questions, but if you do, please contact my wonderful colleagues at info@celpip.ca. And with that, take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.